I first wanted to say thanks to everyone for being here this afternoon, and welcome to University of New Hampshire School of Law, and welcome to our new Franklin Pierce Center for Intellectual Property atrium. This was built about a year ago, so we're really glad to have you here today. My name is Erin Corcoran, and I direct the Law School's Social Justice Institute, and I'm a professor here as well. The Social Justice Institute is the locus at the law school whose primary role is to educate students about their professional responsibility as law students aspiring to the legal profession on their obligation to do pro bono work and give back to the community. We also focus on assisting the underserved. And today, the New Hampshire Bar Association and the Social Justice Institute have invited you here today to pay tribute to a colleague of ours, Bruce E. Friedman, whose life work has been protecting the vulnerable, improving access to justice for all, and instilling those values into law students. We are also here today to celebrate the pro bono work of so many New Hampshire lawyers, many of whom are alumni of our law school. In addition, the New Hampshire Bar Association understands the value that pro bono plays in serving and helping the New Hampshire residents. Finally, the Bar Association and the law school are here today to honor an alumna of this law school, Marilyn Billings McNamara, for her exemplary commitment to pro bono service throughout her career by presenting her with the inaugural Bruce E. Friedman Pro Bono Award. And we are so thrilled and honored today to have with us the Chief Justice of the New Hampshire Supreme Court, the Honorable Linda Stewart Delianis, to keynote this historic event. Chief Judge Delianis has dedicated her legal career to public service and fighting to improving access for all. And she is a trailblazer in her own right. She's a model to aspiring lawyers as well as practicing attorneys. In 1980, she was the first woman to serve on the Superior Court of New Hampshire. In 2000, she was the first woman to be the chief of the New Hampshire Superior Court. In 2000, she was also appointed to be the first woman to serve on the New Hampshire Supreme Court. And in 2010, Linda Delianis was elevated to serve as the first woman Chief Justice on the New Hampshire Supreme Court. Kind of amazing. As a member of the judiciary, she has worked tirelessly to improve the court system. She has, in that capacity, she has chaired the Family Division Implementation Committee as well as the Judicial Branch Dispute Resolution Committee. She continues to be a voice in the profession about our professional obligations and imperative to provide pro bono service. Please join me in welcoming Chief Justice Linda Stewart Delianis.
Good afternoon. Laura Kiernan, our public information officer, keeps insisting that I get new official portraits made. Now, I've been fighting her on that, but usually she gets her way. Did you see this one? Okay, so check out this Dame Judi Dench look. What do you think? Could I be M? I think so. I think I could probably play that role. Forgive me if my voice sounds a little off. I'm recovering from a cold. Thank you, Erin, for that kind introduction. Dean Broderick, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be asked to speak here today at the first presentation of the New Hampshire Bar Association's Bruce E. Friedman Pro Bono Award. I knew Bruce. He was a thoughtful, brilliant man with an abiding commitment to the highest ideals of our profession. I commend your selection of Marilyn Billings McNamara, my friend, as the recipient of this award in his name. Marilyn's many years of dedication to equal access to justice for all New Hampshire residents and her leadership in the pro bono effort is a record worthy of our recognition and our admiration. Thank you, Marilyn, for all you have done for your fellow citizens, especially those low-income families and children whose lives were impacted by your devotion to the law as an instrument to help those in need. There is, as we all know too well, a justice gap in our country and in our state. When I look at the numbers, it seems far more than just a gap to me. It's a crisis of injustice that we as lawyers have a professional obligation to continually recognize and attempt to address. Here in New Hampshire, the most recent estimates are that there are nearly 150,000 low-income residents with legal needs. But we were able to provide low-cost legal services in only about 8,400 cases, just 6% of the perceived need. Who are these fellow citizens who make up the population eligible for legal assistance? They are a family of four with an income below $44,000, or a single individual making less than $21,000. The majority are women. Many are senior citizens. Many are disabled, uninsured, underemployed, or just out of work. They need the legal system to try to solve problems that involve the issues of day-to-day existence: family problems, housing needs, consumer issues, a financial crisis, denial of benefits such as Social Security or food stamps. They arrive in court on their own, unable to navigate the system. Basic rights are at stake: a place to live, custody of a child, but there are scarce resources to provide any legal help at all. A 2011 survey of our judicial branch employees here in New Hampshire confirmed that the self-represented population continues to grow. 74% of our employees, those are the folks who deal with them every day, said the number of pro se litigants has increased over time and continues to increase. These employees report that as many as 70 to 80% of the litigants they encounter in the courthouse have no lawyer but themselves. In New Hampshire, we have an extraordinarily devoted team of lawyers who, like Marilyn McNamara, devote their professional lives to meeting the legal needs of the poor. New Hampshire Legal Assistance and the Legal Advice and Referral Center, aka LARC, are in a constant valiant struggle with state and federal lawmakers for basic funding for lawyers, paralegals, and support staff who dedicate themselves selflessly every day to helping their fellow citizens with their legal problems. Today, with the Bruce Friedman Pro Bono Award, we honor another core element of the effort in our state to address the legal needs of low-income citizens. Each year, hundreds of New Hampshire lawyers generously volunteer their time and expertise to the New Hampshire Bar's Pro Bono Referral Program. On behalf of the Supreme Court, I want to thank each and every one of those lawyers who use their legal skills, many of you are here in this room, to help someone in need solve a problem, preserve a family, pay the rent, or put food on the table. As a judge for nearly all of my career, I wasn't, for very long anyway, subject to the weight of billable hours and accounts receivable. But I know full well the pressure that comes with legal practice, especially in today's marketplace. I'm aware, too, that there are those who think that asking lawyers to donate some valuable professional time to help meet the demand for legal services because it is the right thing to do is just too idealistic an approach. Let me share with you some reflections by retired United States Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. She offers another way to look at pro bono services as an obligation to the public that we assume when we take the oath as lawyers. In a chapter on professionalism in her book, The Majesty of the Law, Justice O'Connor acknowledges what we all know, that many lawyers are dissatisfied with their careers, not just because of the long hours and hard work or decline in civility in the practice and among our colleagues, but she wrote, what goes to the heart of what it means to be a lawyer is that many lawyers question whether at the end of the day they have contributed anything worthwhile to society. How would you answer that? For Justice O'Connor, the answer is straightforward. As professionals, we have an ethical obligation to use our skills and training not just for our own gain, but also for the community that we serve. Lawyers, she wrote, possess the key to justice under a rule of law, the key that opens the courtroom door. That key is not held for lawyers' private purposes. It is held in trust for those who would seek justice, rich and poor alike. I can imagine no greater duty than fulfilling this obligation, Justice O'Connor wrote, and I can imagine no greater pleasure. She recalled that Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, in his essay, The Path of the Law, said that happiness cannot be won simply by being counsel for great corporations and having an income of $50,000. Certainly a fortune when this was published back in 1897. Holmes continued, an intellect great enough to win the prize needs other food besides success. More than 100 years later, Justice O'Connor placed this truth about the legal profession in the context of what she called, and I echo, a great and crying need for legal services to the poor. In her words, ensuring that there is indeed equal justice under law, not just for the wealthy, but also for the poor, the disadvantaged, and the disenfranchised, is the sustenance that brings meaning and joy to a lawyer's professional life. To those New Hampshire lawyers who have experienced the satisfaction and maybe even happiness in helping a fellow citizen solve a legal problem, I again offer my thanks and that of the Supreme Court and our admiration. And for those lawyers who wonder at the end of the day what you have contributed to society, I suggest that you consider offering your skills to someone in need, and you will find your answer. And finally, to the newest members of the New Hampshire Bar, probably who aren't here this afternoon, but they might hear about this anyway, who will take the oath in a few weeks, I hope that you too will be inspired by the true meaning of equal justice under law and make service to your fellow citizens a part of your professional lives. Our obligation is to set the example for them and for all the lawyers yet to come, and carry that message forward for the community that we serve. Congratulations, Marilyn, and thank you for asking me to be here today.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Professor Chuck Temple to come up and talk a little bit about who Bruce Friedman was and a little bit about his legacy. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. When my father passed away, I asked my mother, who do you want to speak at his funeral? And the first two words out of her mouth were Linda Delianis. Just a great judge, and it's so wonderful to have her here to speak to our students and everyone here. So we really appreciate you being here today, Judge Delianis. And I know if Bruce was here, he'd give you a big thank you, too. So, especially for the students, who is this Bruce Friedman guy? I will tell you this. Chuck Temple would not be teaching at this law school if there was not a Bruce Friedman in his life. He was full of boundless energy in this commitment to children, to the poor, to the indigent, to the disadvantaged that I can't even begin to describe. He was a great man in so many ways. He had this sense of humor that is also indescribable, Bruce Friedman. Here's how he described himself as a teacher. This is what he hoped for. He wanted to be comprehensible, comic, and cosmic. That is Bruce Friedman in a nutshell. When he came into a courtroom, and I was often on the other side against him for some reason early on in my career, every family law case I seemed to get, Bruce Friedman and or Ellen Mazinski was on the other side. And it was just unbelievable to watch him walk into a courtroom. He came typically from the Green Street Community Gym. His tie was kind of half on, half off. His coat wasn't on, he was running. He would then exclaim about what a great basketball player he is. He was all of what? 5'6", 5'7", thought he was Magic Johnson or Shaquille O'Neal, played basketball every day of his life. In he would run to do battle against me. And I feared that man in the courtroom. He was always so prepared in a completely different way than I ever would prepare. He fought the fight for his clients like no one I have ever seen in the legal profession. His clients loved him. Why? He was so invested in their life, in their cause, and in whatever was before the court on their behalf. He was there to represent them. He was there to do well for them. And I'll never forget, after the first case I had with him, which was a very difficult custody battle, and I thought, man, this guy has just chewed me up one side and spit me out the other. About a week later, he took the time to sit down with me and say, do you know what a great attorney you are? Do you know how well you did in this case? Do you know how well you represented your client? He never had to say that to me. About 5 years after that, he began his trips to China, and asked me to come over here and teach part-time for him. Another bizarre experience for me. I would come into his office to get ready. I remember the first time I met with Bruce to get ready. He said, I have a hornet's nest in my office, and I am going to win this battle. And there were like 50 dead hornets. And he said, you are going to be here for 12 weeks, Temple. Kill the hornets. We're going to win this thing. So I did my job over the 12 weeks. When he came back, I completely changed his office. I changed his furniture. I put pictures of my kids in there, all my diplomas up, and that's what he walked into. We just had a wonderful time together. But for the students, these are Bruce's people, the children who are abused not only by their parents, but by DCYF. He came in and he reformed that system. He took up that cause. He took up those children when no one else would stare them in their face. Bruce Friedman did, and he changed that world. He stood in the void for the poor, always, for the disadvantaged, for the disenfranchised. That was Bruce Friedman to the core. And he did this with boundless energy, a sense of humor, a sense of compassion and passion that I have never seen again in this world. I hope in my practice here at the law school that the students, whether it be in the classroom or the courtroom, see just a piece of Bruce Friedman in me. If they do, they will have a great, great career. So I say what Bruce said to us quite frequently and what he said to me during the course of my career. Go out and fight the fight. Go out and fight for people who don't have what you have. And do it with dignity. Do it with respect. And don't be afraid to laugh once in a while. And finally, I'll tell you one last story, and this kind of sums Bruce up in a humorous way. Bruce would not retire from the Buck Bowl. He had to play in the Buck Bowl. He thought he was, I don't know, Jerry Rice or someone. I thought I was Tom Brady, and he wasn't even born yet at the time. And he would come back to the huddle and say, I'm beating that young guy on the outside. I can beat him. Throw me the ball long. And I said, Bruce, he's like 10 yards in front of you every time. So I'm not sure whether I actually ever threw this ball or it was another quarterback that day, but he went long. He got open. And either I or the other quarterback hit him with the pass. Fully extended in the air, fell on the ball, punctured his lung, fractured his rib, and was out of work for quite a while. Marcus will tell you that. That's Bruce Friedman. That's the way he lived his life inside and outside of the courtroom. He was always going 100 miles an hour. And there's a little quote in here that says, to all of you, do well as you do good. And that's my pitch. That's what I urge all the students of this law school to do. Be like a Bruce Friedman and do well as you do good. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Chuck. I'm now going to have Jenny Martin come up and talk a little bit about the New Hampshire Bar Association's efforts on pro bono for the month of October and talk about Maryland as well. So come on up, Jenny.
Thanks, Erin. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief Justice Dean Broderick. Chuck, the last time I saw you was at the Pro Bono Golf Tournament, and your attire, I must say, looks much better today. And you're a much better speaker than golfer. But we do want you to come back and play, please, please. Okay. And thank you, Erin, as well, for helping to organize this event. It's such a wonderful venue for this sort of activity. Really, really appreciate it very, very much. It's really an honor to be here, as well as thanking the people that I just mentioned. I really do want to thank all the volunteer attorneys who selflessly provide free legal services to low-income clients every day. That includes Marilyn McNamara, our awardee today. And I also want to thank the staff of the other legal services programs and the staff of the pro bono program for the work that they do every day. I have to say, when I heard that $50,000 a year in 1897, oh my gosh, you know. But we will move on. Several years ago, the American Bar Association, under the leadership of Steve Scudder, who is counsel to the ABA Committee on Pro Bono and Public Service and an alum of this institution, organized a month-long celebration of pro bono. It's grown each year, a way to really recognize the efforts of volunteer attorneys. So in New Hampshire, we have taken this up as well with the help of some of the bar staff, including Dan Wise in the communications department. If you don't have a little high five sticker for pro bono, that is one of the things that Dan has done, which we are putting on all of our correspondence on the bar's website. You know, just wherever Richard Giucita was going to, you know, put it on his head, I suggested that he not do that. We also have a number of other things. Of course, we have this reception today, which is really a wonderful occasion that we hope becomes an annual event in conjunction with the law school. We have something else that we're doing this month, as family law is one of those huge areas of need for low-income people, and an area in which Bruce Friedman was very passionate. And I have to say, so many of the family law attorneys, the people who do this work day in and day out through the pro bono program, were inspired by Bruce Friedman. One of my staff mentioned David Sayward called one day and said, "Oh, I'll take a case for Bruce." I was thinking about Bruce. His legacy is tremendous after all these years. It really continues. And I'm hoping, as a result of Chuck's remarks, this event, the energy around this, that other students will be so inspired to take up that kind of mantle as well. And someone who has done that actually was here to help found the Civil Practice Clinic, Marilyn McNamara, which Bruce then expanded, has definitely done that. One of the things we're doing this month is divorce camp to train new lawyers to handle divorces. And that was something that Marilyn and I started a bunch of years ago. If you know Marilyn very well, Marilyn has lots of ideas, lots of ideas. And sometimes we actually will take one of those ideas and run with it. And divorce camp has been one of those things, very successful. Attorneys have to have a case, they get a mentor, they get all the support that they need to do family law. That's not the only way in which Marilyn has helped shape pro bono in New Hampshire. She was the longtime chair of the pro bono board, and I couldn't quite figure out how many years, but Marilyn doesn't know either, many, many years. She's taken on cases of some of the most challenging clients, and she has a way of figuring out solutions to thorny situations that really perplex other attorneys, particularly maybe some younger pro bono attorneys. She's taken on the role of mentoring in a major way attorneys who really need a wise person to help guide them. And if you've ever read Marilyn's postings occasionally on the Family Law Listserv at the bar, I always shake my head. I mean, they're always so thoughtful and on target. And I have to say that it probably, after that, there's nothing left for anyone in the Family Law Listserv to say other than, gee, Marilyn, thank you for that perspective. We all really, really needed that. Marilyn, some of you may know or not know, is a really very accomplished writer, and I think if and when she ever retires, maybe she will write that novel. And maybe she's written several already, I don't know. She's written often about the pro bono program and to inspire others to get involved. There's so many ways, and she's really a special person within the pro bono world, and I can't say enough about her. The pro bono program has been in operation now. We're going to be celebrating our 35th anniversary. And I don't know how many of those years Marilyn's been involved, but many, many of those years with our program. This past year, attorneys within our program donated about 18,000 hours of free service. We always need more. We really encourage, to spread the word, get out there. Justice Delianis spoke just so eloquently about the need and what you get back. And sometimes we actually hear that from attorneys. We hear about some of the difficult challenges, but sometimes attorneys actually even thank us for the clients that we send their way, that it's made a difference in their lives as well. So it's not just a one-way street. So at this point, I think that Dean Broderick and I are going to present Marilyn with her. Do you want to say a few remarks? It's so good to see you. No.
There's your one, right here.
It's heavy.
Marilyn, come up. It's a very odd-shaped box for airline tickets. Seems strange to me. It's certainly heavy, Marilyn.
Good.
Marilyn McNamara, simply stated, is the real deal. She understands what lawyering is about, and she and Bruce Friedman belong in the same pod together. So congratulations for what you've accomplished, and just as importantly, for all you'll be doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a little uncomfortable. The spotlight shouldn't be on me. It should be on the people who really need our services. But I also have to tell you, in truth, I get paid. I get paid to do pro bono. And here's how I get paid. And in riches one could never possibly count. I, for example, learned as we were waiting for a hearing that my client was a reenactor, and I got to see a little jig and a whistle from 1812 and a story about his life as a trapper along the St. Lawrence River. You can't buy that any other way. You can't get that. I've held innumerable tiny babies, really adorable, cute little things, and of course been able to hand them back, which is the real gift. I had a little old lady one time explain to me how to kill a fisher cat with a shovel. You need that, you need to know those things. If you don't open the door and walk through and meet with and see pro bono clients and others who live on the edge of poverty, you are missing a huge, enriching experience in a life you would never otherwise have experienced. You learn what people do when they have nothing and how they not only get by, but live rich lives. Lives that are close to the bone, lives that can be knocked over really quickly, people who at one moment can be stable, functioning, and working, and suddenly out of work and perhaps alone, a child is ill, and the world comes tumbling down. And that's where we come in sometimes to build back, to take the foundation they have and begin to recreate their lives with them working with us and becoming more functioning citizens with the respect that we give them, with the honor that we provide to them, with the ability to encourage and continue to say, you can do this, I'm going to help you, I will be with you, until the case is over. Sometimes they have trouble letting go at the end. But on occasion, you'll see someone running, walking by or whatever, and an individual will stop and look at me. A woman in a store once I was buying my groceries, and she was being the cashier, and all of a sudden she bellowed out over the whole row of cashiers, "Hey, this is the woman that got my kid back." In some ways, I have to say, that's all the recognition I really need. Thank you.
I just have a very few closing comments. First of all, I want to thank the Chief Justice for coming. It's an honor to have you here today, and your remarks were eloquent. I want to thank Professor Corcoran for making this pro bono week a reality. I want to thank Bruce Friedman for inspiring a generation of lawyers and hopefully more. I want to thank the Bar Association and Marilyn McNamara. And I want to thank Jenny Martin. Justice Delianis told you about the unmet needs, which are very real. But the other side of that, of course, is that it's about the promise of the justice system. And it's about public trust and confidence in the promise. And the promise extends pretty broadly, not just to those with resources. About 4 years ago now, I went to Washington with my grandchildren, 3 of them. The fourth one is 3 years old. He was a terrorist, and he was on the no-fly list. And so my oldest grandchild at the time was 7 years old. And so one day she said, "Grandpa, do you want to walk up to the Capitol?" We were about 2 blocks away. So I thought that was a great opportunity. And so Megan and I headed off to the Capitol. And so I sat there that Saturday, a beautiful day, explaining to her what went on in that building and saying to her that maybe, Megan, one day you'll be a senator yourself or a member of the House. But what goes on in that building is very important to your life, whether you work there or you don't. And then I said to her, "Megan, would you like to see the United States Supreme Court?" And she said, "Yes, Grandpa, where is that?" So we turned, and I said, "It's over there." So she and I walked over to the court. There was very few people around. It was a Saturday afternoon. And so we stood on the opposite side of the road, and we looked at the building, and I'm sure it's true for all of you. Every time I see that building, I see it for the first time. It's an amazing building. And as I looked at it that day with my granddaughter, I was thinking, I wonder what the 20th century would look like if that building didn't exist. So since Megan was in school and since Grandpa's always trying to test her reading skills, I said, "Megan, what does it say over the door?" And so she proudly said, "Equal justice under law, Grandpa." And then she asked me a really tough question, which was, "What does that mean, Grandpa?" At that time, I'd been a lawyer and a judge for 35 years, 37 years. And so in my best 7-year-old language, I tried to explain it to her. And keeping in mind what Justice Delianis spoke about, it was the first time in my adult life that I wasn't sure that I believed it. I wasn't sure that I believed it. And yet I was telling my granddaughter what it meant. And lawyers like you are just so important in keeping the promise. You're very powerful people, not because of who you know, but because of what you do and the lives you affect. The promise over the doors of the Supreme Court would be meaningless if it weren't for you, if it weren't for people like Marilyn McNamara. It's pretty important. I hope you get involved in some way for the reasons that were talked about here today. I want to thank the faculty, by the way, who came today. I want to thank Chuck Temple. I never knew he was that eloquent. I think I'll have to take one of his classes. Anyway, thank you for your remarks. They were outstanding. In any event, thank all of you for coming. If you don't have to run off, please don't. And hopefully this will be an annual event and we can get the chief back, I hope. Am I asking for a commitment? Yes. Every year. Anyway, thank you for coming.